guys, how's it going? So I'm working on doing some pot shuffling today. I want to get a couple put away for the winter, and then I want to do some transplanting and repotting. So it's just a pretty quick chore, I hope, because it is the weekend. Benjamin is down for a nap right now, so I thought I would run out here and see what I could get done. Look at the fall color. Can you guys see that in the ash tree? It's a beautiful sunny day out here. It's kind of cold though, it's a little bit windy. So I'm thankful I don't have a ton to do out here today, but let me show you what I'm working on. Benjamin, are you up from your nap already? What are you doing? That wasn't a very long nappy. I love you. You are so cute. So these are the containers I'm going to start with. They've got a blue chiffon Rosa Sharon in there, standard, right in this as a centerpiece that were beautiful this year. Supertunia Bubblegum and a Supertunia, which honestly, like, they're still looking pretty good, and I know it's going to be hard to see those come out, but I have to, for the sake of this plant right here, I have to clean it out so I can plant this in the landscape. And this one is much more expensive and more precious than these down here. So I think that's a little bit more important. Let me show you the blooms on them. Look at that. Isn't that just so beautiful? Now this one is like suffering a little bit from the cold temps we've been having, but typically they're like this big. Huge, big blue blooms, so pretty. So you usually want to get your perennials and shrubs out of containers and into the landscape at least 6 weeks before the first hard frost. And now I think we're maybe like 3 or 4 weeks away from that here in my area. I'm hoping a little bit longer. They're better off in the ground than they are in containers, so no matter when you do it, it's better for the plant, unless you have a place for them to winter over that's more protected. But these pots out here are kind of out. Like, they're out a ways from the house. They get the wind. There's nothing protecting them from a frost, like over, you know, over the top of them. So I feel like it's important to get those out into the ground while the ground's still pretty warm. So I'm going to start by cleaning them out. I've got my trailer here with all my stuff. Let me show you all the tools I'm going to use. So I've got my gloves on already. We've got potting soil, which I know I'll need to repot these containers because I've got some things I'm going to put in them for fall and winter. I've got a couple different shovels, different sizes, a full-size shovel and then a half-size. I've got my kneeling pad. I've also got my little organizer that has all of my irrigation stuff in it, because I know I'm going to be having to cap some drip. And I think that's it. All right, so let's start cleaning these out. So they're cleaned out now. I'm gonna have to probably come give them a good wipe down with a rag, just because they've been like underneath a bunch of plants. So I didn't realize it, but see all of those aphids? I didn't realize the Supertunias had aphids pretty bad. Gross. And I've got the Rosa Sharons here in the cart, so I'm gonna run out into the garden and get them planted. So I'm back behind the gazebo, and I think I want to tuck one in right behind this salvia. I've really enjoyed this color right here, so to bring it in a perennial form would be really nice. So there it is. I gotta just lift it over here. So I did notice when I was putting this Rosa Sharon in the ground that it looks like it had aphids as well, just a little bit. But the temperatures are getting cold enough now that I'm not going to treat it. The cold will kill them off. I also had to dig up a few irises in order to plant this, so I'm going to replant these really quickly. Looks like they needed to be separated anyway. There's a few right there. So I'm just going to bury them just right about up to there, and like on this little guy, I'll just bury it up to here, just so that the tuber is underneath the soil, but the greens are up above. And this one right here doesn't have any green on top, but that's okay. I'm gonna still plant it anyway because it has some nice roots and it may produce yet. All right, next location is back here in the formal garden. I think it's gonna look really good right up against this fence. So I have a Miss Violet butterfly bush here. There's an Arborvitae. There are some lilies that I may or may not be keeping right there. Woo! It's not planted yet. And then this year I planted some Carolee Petite Pink Gara. There's some Rockin' Fuchsia Salvia that's real pretty, and then a purple fountain grass. Mercy with the wind. Let's get this one in the ground. While I'm back here, I'm going to go ahead and give these new plants some water. They're doing really well. These are the At Last roses I planted, as well as the North Pole Arborvitae. We still have our drip system on, but it's only going off once a week right now, and with all this wind, they could probably use the extra moisture. Don't you think that's gonna look really pretty right there? And it gets a lot of sun in this spot, so I think it'll be happy. And the one I planted in the other part of the yard gets quite a bit of sun as well. So both of the Roses Sharons are planted and watered in, and that's one thing you don't want to skimp on in the fall, especially if it's really windy and dry. Like in our area right now, we had a couple of days of rain, which was wonderful, but there's no rain on the horizon, and we probably won't, I mean, we typically don't get a ton of it. So it's something that I always keep on the forefront of my brain. Like, I still need to come out here and make sure that these plants are being watered because they can still dry out like they do in the summertime. All right, I'm back up here, and before I get these all planted, I'm gonna try to level the pot up as best as I can. You can see they kind of settle throughout the course of the season, which makes sense because, you know, a lot of water exits out the bottom of the container and they just sink if they're sitting on soil. That one's kind of down in the front left as well. So these are the estate square planters from Crescent Garden that we've used up here for the past couple of years. And I'm gonna use a plant from up here as a centerpiece. So I'm gonna transplant, these are a type of golden arborvitae that have been up here in these bleaker containers for the last couple of years. I thought that they would probably like to get out of here because they're looking kind of large and they're not scaled properly anymore. I'm actually going to retire these bleaker containers because of the hard water issue that we've been having with them really since the beginning, and I think it's because they have ridges in the side, so our water like settles into those ridges and then dries quickly and then just creates this stain really fast. I have mentioned how hard our water is before, and you guys have given us some really great suggestions, and we've tried a lot of them. Like I've done the whole vinegar thing, CLR, Lime Away, a couple other products I cannot remember off the top of my head, but you know, it almost wouldn't matter how much I cleaned them because I could get these sparkly clean and they would still have hard water staining a week after I got them all clean. So if I can have a smoother surface or something, like that's why I always choose lighter colored concrete, because hard water, even if there's hard water buildup and crust on it, you can't really see it as much. It almost kind of adds to the patina. Darker things in my garden is really hard. I mean, I love dark colored fountains and things like that, but the upkeep is a nightmare here. So I just tend to go for lighter colored things. They've been great though. These have like what's called a gravity cavity in the bottom, so you can actually fill the bottom with sand because the reservoir is actually not that big. It like is probably right here. So there isn't soil all the way to the bottom, but you can put sand on the bottom if you've got a really windy location and they will stay put. So there's some good things about them. It's just that our water is just horrid. I'm excited to see what these arborvitaes will look like in these square containers though, and I think they'll be happier being in a little bit more sunshine. So there's the first one, and I absolutely love it. I think they look so good in that pot. Like, I wouldn't need to plant anything in there to have it look finished. I mean, I'm going to, but I wouldn't need to, I don't think. So I did have some drip tubing that's running on the ground, and we just had it coming up the outside of the pot in. So I used this opportunity to run it up through the drain hole, and then I just used a coupler. See if I can get in the shade. I used a coupler to add a little extra length of it so I didn't lose it down underneath the soil. So when I'm all done packing in soil around it, I will split this and have it kind of go, you know, multiple directions. Not that we're going to be using the drip system this fall, but it'll be in place for next spring, which will be very handy. So I I did remove most of the old soil and I tucked brand new soil in around the root ball of the Arborvitae. And I think they both look awesome. And honestly, I can't tell the size difference quite as much. I mean, you still can tell a bit. But when they're not quite as close together, it doesn't look as drastic. Maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe you just need to look at them with one eye shut. That's what I do. I think it's good. I'm not going to trim on them, I don't think. Since Benjamin woke up actually right when I started this video, I thought that he was going to stay down for most of it. I'm going to go inside. I'm going to take a little break, go inside and hang out with him for a bit before he goes down for his next nap. And then hopefully he sleeps for a good enough block of time that I can get the rest of this done. As I'm going in, you can see the huge mess I just created. I need to remember to clean that up. And when I was removing the pots, I realized how many spider webs we have. We just had all of these cleaned off. Oh, hi Russell. Hi Benjamin. Did you get a change of clothes? Hi. Are you having a good time in here playing with your daddy? Yeah, you guys are having a fun time. Got Benjamin down for his second nap. So hopefully I can get a little bit more done. I'm gonna actually just head right out to the greenhouse and grab a few plants to plant around the base of those arborvitaes. Also, I'm really enjoying looking at these today because it's supposed to be 25 degrees tomorrow night. If that is true, all of these will be toast. I was kind of hoping that the wind would die down during my little break, but it is showing no signs of stopping today, which is probably what's bringing in the little cold front that we're gonna get. I've been saving these for just this occasion. So here's what I brought over to work with. Now these plants will go in both the estate planters and then 2 containers that I'm actually gonna bring up here in just a minute. So this is an ornamental kale called Coral Queen. And so I think I'm gonna use 3 since they're so nice and big. I'll use 3 in each one of these square containers. See this one a little bit better. And then I've got this gorgeous purple heart right here. Now these are hardy down to 0, so these will last quite a long time in these containers. I've got Goldilocks Creeping Jenny. I've got a few kind of a purple bicolor Viola here. A few small cabbage, which I think I'm going to use in the other 2 containers. There's some Heucherellas there that are fantastic. Look at the foliage. This one I think is called Red Rover. Yeah. So we've got Red Rover and Hopscotch, which has a little bit more green and bronze in it. And then I've got this flat of Violas right here. And you guys, I went with kind of a different blend for me. I went with a Scarlet because I'm actually kind of planting these with Christmas in mind. If we have a mild winter like we did last year, which I don't know what it's gonna be like, who does? But it would be really fun to have some red and white blooms still kind of peeking out here and there. And then there's a couple of sorbet purple, so really deep purple right here. Almost looks black in the camera anyway. Here's Russell, he's done napping too. So what I normally do, you guys, because I know it's late right now in the season and it is getting a little harder to find nice plants at your garden center, I actually stock up early. So like those great big kale that I have, I actually have had for, well, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks just sitting there waiting for me to get to this project. But I'll do that, like I'll stock up early on in the season and just keep them near a hose somewhere. I used to even do it at our old house before I had a cold frame to store them in. I just have like a little cluster of plants that I knew that I was going to be using in projects later on in the season, and that way I didn't miss out. So that's a lot of the time why I have plants, you know, at weird times of the year. It's because I am willing to like keep them alive and keep them looking good until I'm ready to use them. So now I'm just going to plant up these 2 square estate planters and then I'm gonna clean the whole container and make them look nice and sharp. Also, I wanted to mention that the plants that I chose, so the Heucherellas, the Kale, the Violas in particular, all do really, really well in cold temperatures. Like sometimes they'll winter over into the spring and you can use them as part of your spring arrangement. The Purple Heart and the Creeping Jenny are the only two that I'm using that they are hardy. Like the Creeping Jenny is a hardy perennial. I'm not sure how long it will last through winter looking really nice. But I have used it in lots of containers and like it's evading my brain right now, but I'm pretty certain that one looks pretty good through a lot of cold. And then the Purple Heart is a new one for me in outside containers. Typically I grow inside as a house plant, so I'm really excited to see how that one does out here, especially given the fact that it's hardy to 0. So it won't overwinter, like it'll probably get cold enough to actually kill it, but it'll be interesting to see if it's something that if we had a mild winter maybe we could limp it through. So we'll see. Are you digging in my pot? Oh, shame on you. Look at your feet. Look at them. Naughty, naughty. So I think they turned out really pretty. There's the Arborvitae. I did 3 of the Ornamental Kale, so there's 1 in the front, and then I just split the distance for the other 2. Ooh, I'm shadowing it kind of. There's a red Rover Heucherella with a white Viola. In between those 2, cabbage. In between these, there's the Purple Heart and another white Viola. And then we've got the Hopscotch Heucherella and the Goldilocks Creeping Jenny on that side, which I think that right there is my favorite pair. Oh, you can see this one a little bit better. You can see the colors. This one gets a little bit more shade than the other side, clearly. But they both get really, really strong morning sun, and in the evening they're shaded, both of them are. So I realize it's a little bit confusing that I planted the Rosa Sharon out in the landscape and tried to get that one in before a hard frost, and then I went ahead and planted more perennials and an evergreen in those containers. And it's because the plants that I put in the containers now are actually rated more winter hardy than the Rosa Sharons are. So if you are going to plant evergreens, perennials, shrubs, anything like that in the container, you want to make sure that it's rated at least 1 zone, if not 2 zones, colder than your current zone. So I live in a zone 5. The Heucherellas are both rated at a zone 4, so that's, you know, it gives me a little bit of buffer. If we have a super cold winter, they may not make it, but I'm betting that they will. The Arborvitae, I cannot remember, but I believe it's a zone 3, as well as the Goldilocks Creeping Jenny, so all of those should winter over just fine. So that's just kind of the rule of thumb if you're wanting to winter stuff over in containers. It's always a risk no matter what you do. But these, even though they're not like under the protection of the house, they are kind of close-ish, and the wind actually comes from the opposite direction, so they're at least protected from like the battering wind. They do get a little bit of wind, especially this one that's in more shade. The wind kind of like creates a tunnel and comes right through here, and this one will kind of get nailed a little bit. But everything I've put in there so far has done okay. So the last thing I want to do is I want to go grab a couple other containers I have planted out by our front arbor. They have boxwoods in them, and I want to bring them in and put them next to this door. So they're a little bit smaller statured than the bleaker containers that I had here. So I think, I don't know, I mean, let me get them up here and decide whether or not I like the small look, the smaller containers. But I figured that the boxwoods would do much better wintering closer to the house than they would like out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, they are in a spot where there's absolutely no protection. So let's go grab those. I'm gonna grab my Falcos and my irrigation supplies because I'm gonna have to cap the drip that runs to those urns. So here they are. So you can see that there's driveway to my right, driveway to my left. These kind of get, any kind of weather that we're getting, they get nailed. So I just want to get these under more protection because I want to save these boxwoods. I want them to winter over. So I've got drip running underneath. Let's see. You can see the drip is running underneath the container, and I'm gonna go ahead and just cut the tube and put a cap in it. And then we can tap into it next spring if we put new containers up here. done. Planted. It's all cleaned up. I hosed it off up here. And I did give the containers a little bit of a spray paint job because they needed it. There was some hard water staining. And I kept these extremely simple. I just went with the purple and the red violas with the Boxwood cone topiary. And I don't know, I mean, I guess I'm just so used to those behemothly huge pots that were sitting here that these do look a little bit small. I think it doesn't look as small on this side because there's one light, and I'm not really sure, and I just noticed that there's only one light and not two. Like, why is there only one? That's kind of weird. Oh, look who's at the door. Hi, baby. Hey. Hey, Benjamin. Ooh, it's kind of glary. I think he wants to come out here. You can give me your opinion on these pots.
Well, they look good.
Do you think they look really way too small?
Yeah.
Well, is it just because we're used to those huge ones though?
Maybe.
Also, I didn't realize there's only one light.
Yeah.
How's there only one light and I've never noticed that before?
I don't know.
That's gonna bug me now. I need balance. I need two. Don't you think?
Yeah. Well, maybe we can get we can move these somewhere else and put something a little taller there.
We can. Hi. How was your nap? That wasn't a very long second nap, was it?
No.
Oh, we're gonna have an interesting afternoon, aren't we?
He wants the camera.
You want the camera? I think you just want your mama, huh?
Maybe.
Yeah, so you guys might end up seeing these containers out in a different spot in the garden somewhere if we decide that we want something a little bit bigger. And I'm gonna look into maybe getting a second light out here. I don't know, I'm sure that's possible. Dang. Those little things, I swear, like I'm pretty observant about some things, but some other things, like it can take me 3 years to notice that we only have one light. Anyway, I'm just glad whether or not these end up staying, that they're clean, they're replanted, and the boxwoods are going to be safer up closer to the house. So wherever we end up putting them, if we move them, I'll keep them close because I know myself, and anything that ends up too far away from the house will get neglected and won't get watered properly, because things still have to get water in the wintertime. Even if there's snow on the ground, that doesn't mean that water is making it to the root ball of your plants when they're in containers. So anything that's out by that arbor, it's just too far out. So it's just one of those things, like these evergreen centerpieces are not cheap, and so I want to keep them so I can use them again next year and hopefully the year after and the year after, and then maybe they'll end up out in the landscape at some point. So anyway, that is all I'm going to do out here today other than a few watering things I need to do, just my routine, and then I'm going to hang out with Benjamin and Aaron for the rest of this Saturday. So anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.